Hello, good morning, welcome to Galactic Project Part 2. We are on Saturday the 22nd of March. We're about to dig this lawn up and I know what you're thinking, it looks fine, why are you digging it up? And I've just looked through the camera myself and it did look alright actually, but up close we know it's a different story, so don't worry, we're going to be doing lots of things today. First of all, we're going to be taking this original lawn up. We've got a turf cutter just here and I'll talk a bit more about that in a second. Got a new skip. Paul's just nipped off to Mackie D's for some breakfast because we're both hungry, and then we're going to be getting some rootzone delivered. Might be able to put the fleece down, we might not. We'll have to see what depth we can get. Get the rootzone in, get some field compost mixed in, hopefully all that today, and then we'll see about seeding going forward. We seeded this lawn last year, actually overseeded it on the 13th of March, so we're well ahead of that and it came through nice. So I think we've got the weather now, but don't try it at home yourself, wait a bit longer. I'm only doing this because we've got the cherry blossom behind us and I need this lawn to be up and away and established before that falls or starts to fall at the end of April, early May. So we can't have a new lawn with that going on it because it would just smother the new seed and probably kill it. So without further ado, let's talk about the turf cutter. Okay, so as you see before, we've got a turf cutter. It's a Camon TC07. Now, when you're doing your job, you've got to weigh up whether it's worth getting it or not. For this job, because it's so big, we're going to need it because we're on a deadline. We're going to get this up and in the skip before our root zone comes around about 11 o'clock. But I think it's big enough to warrant a turf cut, because when we dug that out over there, it took a few hours, and to do this, it would just take all day and be back breaking. So this takes the strain away from that. So pick them up for about 40 to 60 quid a day. I had a look online and I found prices ranging from 40 to 60 quid. I paid 40 for this plus VAT. So it's not that expensive. But the other thing is that you do actually use it for 10 minutes. So pro rata is actually quite expensive, but when you do it and you see the quickness of how you dig it up and then roll it up, it's miles better. So we're going to start with this. We're going to avoid the edges. We'll do them by hand because I don't want to damage the new curbstone. So I'll just be taking a little border, or taking into account a little border, and starting that. So Paul's just nipped off while I can get ahead. Now the biggest tip I can give you with this machine is don't start taking up the turf until you've done 3 or 4 runs, because you need the wheels to stay on the piece that you've just done. If you take away the piece you've just done and then do your next piece, you'll end up with a staircase. So always leave the turf down and cut and then take up once you've got a few rows going, if you've got somebody working behind you. But if you're working on your own, don't just do a strip and take it up and start again, because you'll end up with that step. So it's time to start. The good thing about this machine is that it's self-propelled. The early ones used to go off pegs in the tyres, but when the tyres wore down, the pegs didn't grip, because the higher shops don't really want to replace tyres and things, they don't want to spend the money, so the grip had gone, so you ended up pushing it, whereas this has got its own gearbox, so it makes it a lot easier, apart from when you're trying to turn around near a hedge. Alright, so we've been at it a couple of hours, managed to get it all up. So what we're going to do now is, the turf machine normally cuts quite deep, but today we could only get it to cut half of what we actually wanted. So we're going to go over it again to remove more material, because we've still got room in the skip, because we're still only an inch below the curb. So if we keep it this height, we're not going to be able to get our fleece on to stop the worms coming through, which is part of the project really. So we're just going to do as much as we can in the skip, and in the middle we don't have to go down as much, because we're going to camber the lawn anyway to make it look a bit nicer rather than it just being a flat lawn. So we can raise it up with there, but around the edges we really need to be removing some bulk. And to be honest, around the edges is where the worm casts like it the most over the years I've found. So we're going to go and get some drinks, and then we're going to come back and start that second half. Alright, so we've just been digging away some more soil and we're still not deep enough to get a fleece in, so we're just going to crack on without, and we're going to start putting some soil in, because we've nearly filled the skip. We're going to just keep putting some soil in, bringing it round, and just keep chiseling away at this, so we don't end up with too much of a hole to backfill, because we've got a certain amount of root zone to go back in. I think we've got enough right now. So we just start down there, start grading it up, and then if we find we've got too much, we can just start chiseling away some more of this, get it in the skip. Probably got another quarter in there, so we've got plenty of room. We've got to get other bits and pieces in. So we're just going to finish floor points in the back. Paul's just going to mix that up now, and then whilst that's going off, we can be moving soil, and then we're not wasting time later on. All right, so we're just getting the root zone in. I don't know what it is, they won't tell me, but I think it's like a recycled material. It's like sediment that washes off from the plant when they are crushing things, but it's always consistent. But good soil, if you squeeze it up like a snowball, it should crumble straight back, and that's the great thing about this. And if we just come over here to the soil that we put down 10 years ago, it's exactly the same. So 11 years, 12 years on, it's exactly the same as it was when it went down, so that's why we use this. We need to incorporate a bit of field composting with it because it's so inert. The seed doesn't do very well, but if we just put that little bit of organic matter in, it holds the water, seed loves it, and off we go. All right, so we're just starting moving the root zone in. I just like to kick the soil around with my leg. I don't use a rake at this point because I just find rake creates too much resistance when you're trying to move it, and just doing it with your foot, you can just kick it around, pretend you're playing football, pretend you're a star striker, kick it in the back of the net, and go quite a long way. It makes a bit of fun out of it as well. So I scored about 25 hat tricks whilst doing this project. Right, so just levelling off now. We're not taking any particular attention about finish levels. This is just getting the sand moved over. We're still going to go over and do the walk of the penguins, get it all over, and then what we'll do is we'll mix in some field composters tomorrow. I'll put that in the van, get that over here, ameliorate it in, and then we'll be ready to seed then. But just for the now, we're just going to get this levelled off, going to fix the cobbles there. I think it's going to rain as well, which will be good because this stuff soon dries out, and that's why we incorporate the field compost number 4, because it just adds a bit of organic matter and nutrition holding properties, which is called the cation exchange capacity. It increases that, because otherwise fertiliser would just drain straight through. This water and fertiliser would just drain straight through, so we have to add stuff to it. I've also got some Nutrimate, what I call moon dust, to go in as well. We're kind of getting all the jobs that we've done over the years, and we're putting it all together to create the perfect surface here. Although, as you may have seen, I've not been able to put the fleece in. We just couldn't create enough depth to do that, so we'll have to put up with the worms, unfortunately. But hopefully, because we've dug quite a bit of material out, there's not as many left, and they'll go off to a new home. So what I'll do is I'll carry on, and we'll see you when I'm finished. Alright, so that's the first going over with the rake. Very impressed with that. Looks lovely. We don't really need to do too much to that unless it sinks when we go on it with our feet. I envisage it will up here because there's quite a lot of matter to fill in. But I said in the middle it should be fine. But we've got a little bit left over. So even though the blocks I was a million miles away, the soil, 5 tonne, I've more or less been spot on. So I've redeemed myself somewhat. But sometimes, you know, I'm going to just say it's better to have not enough than too many. But obviously not 1,000, not enough. But still, we've done the job, and we've no blocks left over. So all's good in the end. So yes, what I'm going to do now is we're just going to go over it, penguins, and then give it a final, well, maybe just leave it at that tonight because I think it's going to rain. Come back tomorrow. Field compost just a little bit over the top, mix that in with a fork, same again, re-rake. But then saying that, why do it twice? Because I want to, I think. That's the only reason I can come up with, because we could just field compost it. But yeah, get it mixed in, field compost it, rake it again, and then compact it again, and that's the final kind of level after the rake, then we can seed it. So yeah, let's do that. Let's do what we normally do, let's not change it. And then add that moon dust as well, or the Nutrimate. Okay, so we've had some pretty heavy rain overnight, and it's either just washed the sand away from the edge or just compacted it even more. So even though we went on it with our feet, it's still sunk a little bit. So we just want to get that back up, and then we can get on with some field compost and get it all mixed in, get it levelled again, ready for seeding tomorrow. So I'll crack on, I'll see you in a sec. Alright, so we've just done the second level, everything's nicely up against the edge. So what we're going to do now is incorporate our field compost number 4. This is going to give us some nutrient retention and water retention, more importantly, in the seed. Then he's going to have something to grab onto water-wise. So we're going to go over, we're just going to sprinkle it over. I've got about 8 bags with me, that should be enough. And then we'll give it a fork in and give it a final rake. And then after that, I'm going to be adding some zeolite, but I will talk about that more when I've got that and adding that. But for now, it's just about getting this field compost in, and then that's it for today. So just opening the bag up, always wear gloves when you're handling recycled material like garden waste and food waste, because people put, I know it's horrible, but they put the dog waste in, and obviously that rots down, but if you don't wear your gloves and some gets in your nail, you can end up with pyronychia, which I've just had from constant thudding on my fingers. The finger's been killing, so I squeezed a lot of green goo out the other day. But I remember when I used got one of the original bags of Jack's Magic when they first brought it out with the food wastey stuff, and I got two years ago in them fingers just from using that like food waste compost. I presume there's just some like nasty bacteria in there, and I had 2 for about 4 weeks there, and absolutely killing, like cartoon fingers that were throbbing. So always good practice to wear your gloves. And I'm just literally just going to go along, and I'm just going to sprinkle that amount on all over. Not much, because I don't want to be seeding in this. I literally just want to fine over the top. We'll get it mixed in, because sometimes at Howard's I put too much on, and at times when I was raking the field compost around, and that was my final level, which I didn't want. And when it rained, it all washed away, because field compost just sat on top of sand, will dry, and it will just wash away because they've not got that wet in it. It's like got dry patch already on it, so that's why as well we put the wetting agent on after as well. So we'll do that as well. Probably do that before, as we normally do. We'll do half rate on here, and then we'll do half rate over the top of the fleece, and then that lets the water through. So yeah, it's all looking good. So we didn't do this last time, you see. Last time we seeded this, we didn't put any compost in, so it took ages to come through because it was September anyway. And if you remember a couple of years ago, I showed you the picture of the December the 16th, and we tried to reenact what we did. So it came through eventually, but it was worrying times. So we're just, like I said, learning everything we've done. Took everything that we've learnt so far, and we're just incorporating it into this job to try and make it as good as we can. So I know what people are thinking, well, I didn't get the perfect job then, did I, years ago? But you did at the time. Just obviously things evolve and new things come out, and I'm just learning new things all the time on what works and what doesn't work. So that's just the way it is. Just so I don't disturb the compaction that much, I'm just using my fork just to go back and forth, up and down. And what this is doing, it's just creating like a nice tilthy soil, like a ploughed field. And I'm hoping that the seed will just fall into these grooves and it'll be better for it. Alright, so I've just, as you've seen, double pass with the fork. That looks like a nicely ploughed field now. So that's all nicely mixed in, doing it the both ways. We're not ready to seed yet. Like I said, we're still going to get zeolite on, get the moon dust on. It's a bit windy today. Things with that Nutrimate, it's very, very fine dust. So if you have it on a windy day, it does next doors rather than yours. So do that on a really still day. Get the zeolite on, get the wetting agent on, get the seed on, level, cover, fleece it, and then we're good to go with this side. And then in a couple of weeks we'll dig up this side. So looking forward to that as well, by which time this will be underway. And we're doing this now because of this tree. That gets absolutely covered in blossom. It looks like that street in Japan where all the trees are covered in blossom. So it looks like that, and it will just fall right on there and cause problems. So we need this to be up and away. We still cause these problems on this one, but not as much as on that one. That will get totally covered. So if we did that, say we seeded it when that was out, and the seed would just be coming through, and then it would just get covered in that slimy, dead blossom and struggle to come through. So getting it done now. Is it too early? It isn't for this area, for all this, but we do have a bit of shade there from the hedge, so that'll be a bit behind, but nevertheless it'll still come through eventually. But yeah, I'm really pleased with how that's looking. Good work over the weekend. Worked really hard this week and over the last 2 weeks actually doing this job. It's been hard on my body, but it's built up match fitness, so I'm getting back into the swing of things, like getting up early for the Grand Prix. Was if it was in the winter, I'd be still in bed. I'd still be in bed now, but everything's coming together, feeling good. Weather's improving, temperature's improving, so we're all good to go. And the sun's coming out now, so let's call that a day, and we will see you tomorrow. Alright, so today is seeding day, but before we get on with that, I said yesterday we were going to put some zeolite on. Now what is zeolite? Zeolite is what goes on to make kaolin, and kaolin is what goes on to make china clay. And as we know, china clay has one of the highest cation exchange capacities on Earth, if not the highest, which is the ability to hold on to nutrients, because as we said before, because this is like a sandy based lawn, it's going to be that we need all that nutrient retention that we can get, because sand isn't going to give us any. So why is it so good? It's got like a cage-like structure, and when nutrients attach to it, it can lock them in. Now, a bit of an interesting story is that when the Fukushima tragedy happened, I think it was 2008, they poured 500,000 tons of this stuff on it to trap in all the heavy metals of the nuclear reactor, and all the cows were given zeolite food to absorb the radiation, so the milk wasn't poisoned with radiation, and the children were given zeolite cookies, so they were all right. So we know if there's a nuclear war, these lawns are going to be absolutely fine, even though we won't. So we'll get this on, just put it on at 35 grams a square metre, and then I'll just go over again and just rake it in, get it in. It's not something you can put on top of a lawn actually, unless you've aerated, you know, maybe aeration does have a benefit in that way that you can brush it in, but just to put it on your lawn after you've laid it is not going to do anything. So we really need to get it incorporated into the lower surface. So that's what we're going to do while we've got the chance. So let's get on with that, and then we can get it raked again and get it seeded. Okay, so that's that done. What I also said I was going to do was put the Nutrimate on, but it's just so fine like cement that it just blows away. I just threw it up in the wind yesterday and decided not to do it. So I remembered at Howard's, when we did his nearly 3 years ago, that I just mixed it in with the seed and it just clung to the seed a little bit. So I think I'll do that today as well, and that means we'll get the Nutrimate benefit without putting it on and it all blowing away in the wind. So we'll do that later on, but for now I'll get this raked in, final level, and then we can get on with our seed. So just going over again with the fork. Really am loving this technique of just dragging the fork. It's just so therapeutic, and we're just not moving the soil anywhere. So I really think when we come to seed, we're not going to move the seed too much as we would with the rake. Okay, so we're just getting ready to seed. Here's my Nutrimate, and if you have a look, I'll just throw it up in the air. You see, most of it blows off, so it's only the weighty bits that go in. So they used to use it at Old Trafford and places like that like 20 years ago when it first came over here, and Wolves I think, and they had to stop using it because it just, the static of the seats, all the front rows of seats were just covered in like cement dust like from here, so not great for that. But for us just to pour a bit in, it means it's going to cling to that seed, and we don't need much, just a few handfuls. Now mix this in, and it's just going to grab onto that seed. So as soon as that seed comes through, it can just grab onto nutrients. And we've got that extra special growing power in there as well. So I'll get this mixed in and then we're good to go. So I'm just going to use a full bag, because it's about 85 square metres, so that'll give us about 60 grams a square metre coverage. So I'm happy with that. And we'll see how we get on. That's all we can do. I'm certainly not going to go on at 35. I just thought that's old school for me. That it just doesn't work that anymore. Maybe with fescues and bents, because they do obviously creep, but with rye I think you need to go on with more, to be honest. So I'll just carry on doing this and then we're good to seed. And I just left it, I didn't actually use the rake. I've just left it like a ploughed field. So what's going to happen is when I go over these lines, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over it that way with the seed, a very low setting. I'm just going to do it loads of times rather than just going on with the full blast of seed. Because it's a funny shape, there's going to be a lot of double dosing going on if I do it too quick. So I'm just going to go over that way, rake it back that way, go over it again that way. So we're just ploughing the field and just getting those seeds, trying to get them in the groove so they're a bit deeper in the ground, just for a bit of extra protection. But yeah, it's all coming along very nice. And I think in two to 3 weeks, this is going to be looking like an half decent full lawn. We're not going to rush it though. That's the worst thing you can do, you can rush it. And I know what you're saying is, why are you not putting any pre-seed fertiliser on? Because I don't want to, you don't have to. If I put pre-seed fertiliser on, when it comes through here, lovely, you can see now it's in the shade there, that's going to be a bit behind. So if I feed this up, this is going to come through great. Well, that's still coming through, so we're going to end up with 2 different lawns. And then when you end up raking it all around, you don't know where you put in the feed, where it's going. And when you put in the fertiliser, and you don't know if you're double dosing, so you just end up with a lawn that is ridiculous. So don't bother. We've got everything we need. This seed, 1 grain of seed, has everything it needs to grow. And then once it comes through, it can then start getting what's in that organic compost, the peat-free field compost. It's going to have the nutrimate to grab hold of it. It's going to have the zeolite, which is going to hold the water and any extra nutrients. So we don't need any other fertiliser until the plant starts growing. So we're going to do that way, and then we'll see. So yeah, let's crack on. Okay, so as always, we're using the extreme seed, the dwarf rye, which is going to give us the great look of a football pitch, but it's going to enable us to be able to cut as low as 8, but as high as 30 if we want, depending on the weather, without any negative effects. So we're going to get that great football pitch look without having to cut it as often. All right, so that's the seeding done. Just got to drag it one more time with the fork. I'm really finding the fork a useful tool actually, where I normally rake, and you're pushing and pulling that seed around and you end up with lines of seed when it comes through. You can see where the rake's left it, where I think with the fork, it's like we're actually leaving little lines for the seed to grow into, so and leaving it nice and aerated as well. So I think going forward, this is my technique, and I think when we get the results of this, I think it's going to be fantastic. And we're in actually, what we say, like consistency all over. As when we do it with the rake, it can just be a bit hit and miss, because like I say, we've push and pulled all that seed in different directions. So what we'll do is now we'll get that final line done, the final pass with the fork, wetting agent half rate, fleece, wetting agent on top of that again, and a good water, and then that'll be it then going forward, just daily watering until the seed comes through, and then we'll take it to the next stage. So yeah, let's get on. So we're just spraying the H2Go in the BERTHOUD ELYTE sprayer. Great for a small lawn like this. We get that BERTHOUD accuracy finish. Okay, so that's the half rate wetting agent on H2Go. What that is going to do, that is going to soften the seed as well, so that's going to germinate quicker. So what we're going to do now is just get some water on there before we fleece it, because it's easier to get the water on now whilst we can, and then as we know, it just sits on top for a little bit until that wetting agent lets it through. So we'll do that, get it fleeced, then we're done. Okay, so as you can see, I am watering by hand, and I will only be watering by hand. We're not using sprinklers because a lot of water can move cars. So quite a lot of water on the ground in one place in an amount of time is going to move seed, no problem, and soil with it. So please, no sprinklers, just don't be lazy, just enjoy it. Take your time and just do it by hand, and it's more thorough as well. Okay, so that's the watering done. Time now to get on with the fleece. I've got my fleece, I've got my pegs, so we're good to go. Okay, so we're now on with the fleece. I'm using the same rolls that I used at the posh job from last year. I had a look on eBay, and the price has gone from £115 for 2 rolls of 200 metres by 2 metres to £175 a roll. So somebody there is having a laugh. And I got my pegs from Tool Station, code 44242. So after we finished with the fleece, I then went on with the remaining H2Go in my sprayer, and then give it a good watering in. Alright, so that's this video done. Now, what I was going to say was, if you're turfing your lawn, if you want to turf because you've not got the time to wait for seed, this prep work is exactly the same, so nothing changes up until you either seed or turf, so that's great. Remember now, your field compost code is now DHLE15, we can get 15% off. I went to them and I said, look, 10 just isn't cutting it, we need 15, so can you do it? They said it's going to kill us, but yeah, we can do it. So that's great news for you. What else? So we've got the wetting agent on, we've got a good watering. Going forward now, it's just going to be watering for the rest of the week. It's just beautiful week this week. We've got a little bit of wind, but they're anchored down the sheets quite well. So we're going to be coming in daily, watering, and I think by the end of the week, we should see some red tips coming through, hopefully anyway, that's the plan. So I can't see why they wouldn't. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video, and we'll see you again next time when we'll be doing part 3, which will be removing the sheet and going forward from there. So take care and we'll see you soon.